Mr. Mayor, we're live. You're welcome to go.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. And I say that to my colleagues on the committee and to city staff, but also to the members of the public who are looking in this morning on this meeting of the Debenture Committee. And the clerk has confirmed that we have quorum, so I will now call meeting number 8 of the Debenture Committee to order. This meeting is being held using the city's WebEx technology, with members and staff connecting by video conference or calling in. I ask for your patience with any delays or technical issues that we may experience, and of course the members of the public are able to observe the conduct of this meeting on YouTube. Although we're in different locations and meeting remotely today, the Debenture Committee acknowledges that the land that we're meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. First off, as we do at all of these public meetings, I would ask members if there are any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. If you do have an interest, please unmute your mic and state what it is, and of course there will then be a form that has to be submitted as well. Are there any interests to be declared by members of the committee this morning? I see everybody shaking their head, so I'll assume we can move forward, and I'll ask then for a motion to confirm the minutes of the Debenture Committee meeting of August 21st, 2020.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Crawford. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. We have 2 items on the agenda, and the first is the authority to issue a debenture, item DB 8.1. And this is a report from the Chief Financial Officer and Treasurer with recommendations. And so that report, of course, has been circulated, and I'll first ask if there are any questions of staff on this item. And if you have questions for staff, please unmute your mic and let me know. And a couple if no one else does. They're just the usual ones, but just due diligence questions. Anybody else? Chris, Councillor?
Just one. Yeah, just one.
Go ahead, Councillor.
It's a simple question. It says here that you're reopening a debenture from November 2019. Why would you be reopening one, the rationale, as opposed to issuing a new one? I'm just curious what the process, it's probably a process question, but I'm just curious why you'd be reopening one from 2019.
So through you, Mr. Chair, Councillor, the reason why is institutional investors actually favor larger deals. And so by reopening last year's bond, which was $350 million, it allows us to now have an instrument out that is $600 million. And there are some institutional investors that only look at deals that are over $500 million. So this is actually part of our strategy. And we were actually excited to be able to exceed that 500 million mark. So now we're at 600 million.
Oh, so that's a real good thing then. Excellent.
It
okay,
is.
That's all. Just a quick, simple question.
Thank you.
Mine are pretty quick and pretty simple too. Anybody, Chris, any questions at all? No?
No, I'm fine, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So mine are just the usual, Heather, which are, first of all, just for you to confirm that, as you've done in the report and so on, but that this reopening of this debenture and this additional borrowing falls within all of our appropriate mandated ratios, our mandated overall borrowing authority. If you could just give us a little blast on that, that would be good.
Okay. So as you know, Council has approved the city to borrow up to $1 billion in 2020. This is our 4th offering, in addition to some CMHC funding that we did for modular housing. So this brings us up to just shy of the $1 billion. We have $143 million left outstanding that we could still go into the market before the end of the year. The costs associated with the bonds that we've issued to date, including this one, are all included in our budget, and as well are within the 15% debt servicing authority that we also comply with. So it's in our budget, it's within the authority of our borrowing for this year, and the level of debt that we are carrying is within the 15% debt service ratio that is council policy.
Okay, thank you for that. That's important, I think, to have in the record. 2 other questions I have that really just have to do with sort of market conditions and the remaining $100 million plus of debt room if we need it. First of all, maybe you could just talk a little bit, because oftentimes we're approving this after the instrument has been taken to the market, and you can just talk a little bit about market response and borrowing costs of this, recognizing it was the reopening of an existing debenture. And then secondly, if you wanted to just address whether you had any plans, and I would be particularly interested in whether, and it may not be big enough given what you said earlier on about the size of these offerings, is there any merit or do we have any plans to look at either a social or green bond, or is this too small an amount that's left here to be an issue of any kind by itself? Is there a chance of reopening either of those, the big green bond or big social bond issues we did earlier on? So just maybe if you could sort of talk about the market's reaction and talk about future plans, if any, to deal with that remaining 100 million of council authority, or would you in any way like to have that authority extended beyond the $1 billion because we have a council meeting that could do that? Just maybe talk a little bit about the overall plans we have.
Okay, so first the market conditions. And as you know, the markets have been unstable to a certain extent because of COVID, because of the political scenarios that we're dealing with, we're living with right now. But so we actually chose the timing of the market given all the competing pressures and priorities that are influencing the markets today. We are really pleased to share with you that despite the market conditions, we in actual fact had investor demand of over 2 times the size of our offering. So I think that it's a very good news story. And then in turn, with regards to the interest rates, this again is the most inexpensive, I don't want to say cheapest, the most inexpensive debt we have serviced to date. Last year when we did our 30-year debenture, we're 41 basis points less this year than we were last year. So, it is a reflection of where the interest rates are. But I think the investor demand is also an indication of the investor confidence in Toronto. Now, with regards to the remaining amount that we have outstanding, we are committed. As you know, we are committed to sustainable finance, and we have issued a social bond, and we have committed to doing green bonds on an annual basis. So our hope is to do a green bond before the end of the year.
And would it just then be for the 100 and some odd million? Because I just heard what you said earlier on about the size of these offerings, and I realize the green bond have a particular appeal. They do that may make that slightly different. But I'm not looking to borrow money for the sake of saying we did. But if you said, well, look, actually, we would be wise to go and borrow now because we can at this rate, or because it's a green bond, and you want an issue that's going to be attractive to the marketplace. I think if we had to go to council and sort of say within reason that we had reasons X, Y, and Z to do this, that we would do what was prudent and what was right and businesslike, as opposed to worrying about past decisions made.
So I think obviously the way we balance our portfolio is 10, 20, and 30-year bonds. And what we have to do is pick projects that match the term of the debenture. And so really it's a balancing act between what assets need to be financed, the age of those assets, and then again looking at the green aspect. So it's not necessarily just to go out and raise more money. It's about balancing the assets that we want to finance, as well as the life of the debenture matching the life of the asset. So I think I'm confident that we are comfortable to stay within the 1 billion authority for 2020.
Have the bonds that we issued earlier this year in any way, shape, or form, were they included in the amount of money we said we would put up to purchase the transit vehicles? Because we committed ourselves at the TTC to buying 13 streetcars, for example, even if the feds and the province don't come to the table, which we, of course, dearly hope they will, so we can buy more. But would that have been included previously either in a green bond, which I assume it might qualify for, or just in our general borrowing that we've done to account for that, which is, a 30-year asset, it's green. I'm just thinking about that kind of thing. Is that included in previous borrowings?
We have done green vehicles in our previous green bonds, yes.
Okay. Well, those are all the questions I had, and I thank you very much. And now, are there any people wishing to speak to this? Okay. Well, did you wish to speak? Please, Heather, go ahead.
I would just like to say thank you to the capital markets team. Randy Leclerc and Betsy Young work very hard at managing our debt portfolio, and they do an exceptional job with investor relations and working with our institutional lenders. So just, it's always nice to say thank you for a job exceptionally well done. And I want to say thanks to them.
Thank you for that. And anybody else wishing to speak besides myself? Well, okay, I will just add to that because you couldn't thank yourself, and I will thank you because you're doing a superb job as Chief Financial Officer, and it includes many things, of course, whether it's the budget or day-to-day management, but also how we borrow and what you know, what we achieve when we do borrow, which every organization has to do, including cities. So I thank you very much for your leadership in that regard, and I will reiterate your thanks to the team because we've sat through now a number of issues this year. Each one I think has been in some respects better than the one before. They've all been for very important city building priorities, and it's been sort of well done at a good rate with good market demand, which really reflects all the work that's done, before the issues taken to the market. And in that respect, I just want to read into the record because I think it's important. It should be on the public record somewhere beyond a press release. Because this is, again, a part of how you do your job, Heather, and how we all do our job, including all the city staff. I want to read into the record what I believe is a verbatim quote from the Standard & Poor's report that was issued just this past week, reaffirming the city's credit rating. And here's what they said about the City of Toronto. As the largest city in Canada and the operator of the most heavily used urban mass transit system in the country, Toronto has been significantly affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. The city will remain under significant pressure to keep delivering essential services, including transit, to its residents while grappling with the financial fallout from reduced revenue and increased public health expenditures in the current fiscal year and into the next. However, the city's extremely deep and diversified economy will provide a foundation for recovery as the pandemic and associated restrictions ease. In addition, we believe that Toronto's prudent financial management and robust liquidity will help to sustain the city's creditworthiness in the longer term. Close quote. And so I want to just say that I'm proud to be able to put that on the record because it's a team effort. And that is an objective agency that has no reason whatsoever to say things like that unless they were true, because they are the ones that the marketplace rely upon in examining our creditworthiness and our financial management and so on. And I think it's a proud statement that can be made on behalf of the management of the city, meaning the staff, but also the public, the political leadership, meaning Councillor Crawford as budget chief and myself and all the members of council. It sometimes is a sort of messy process, but I think it ends up in the right place. We've been disciplined, but at the same time compassionate and caring. So I want to thank you for that as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so on that note, if there are no other speeches, then we would move. Let me just go and find back to my meeting. So the next thing I would ask for then is to have the clerk display the recommendations that are made by the Chief Financial Officer and the staff. Catherine, are we just putting those up?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just having some problems with my video.
No, I hadn't heard from you, but I assumed that you were working on
Sorry,
that.
yeah.
No problem.
My apologies, does not seem to be.
It's only for the public. I think we all have them in part of the agenda.
Yes.
But even the public, I guess, have access to that agenda material as well if we had to proceed. Oh, looks like we're making.
Nope, wrong one. Sorry, it's not coming up. I apologize.
Okay.
I'm having some technical problems here. Sorry about that.
Here, I have. What I'll do then, just in order to make absolutely sure the public is aware of what it is we're approving, I'll read the recommendations. The Chief Financial Officer and Treasurer recommends that 1, the Debenture Committee approve the provision of long-term financing of the capital projects listed in Attachment 1 through the issuance of a 30-year sinking fund debenture in the amount of $250 million in accordance with the terms and conditions set out in the purchase letter provided by the lead manager, RBC Dominion Securities, Inc., and entered into by the Mayor and Chief Financial Officer and Treasurer dated October 26, 2020, the purchase letter, and as further described in this report. 2, authority be granted for the introduction of the necessary bill to the Debenture Committee to authorize the issuance of debentures. 3, the Debenture Committee authorize the appropriate City of Toronto officials to take the actions to give effect thereto. Those are the recommendations. If there's no further comments, I will ask for, and I will so move those recommendations since I've read them. And I'll call the question if there's no other comments. All those in favor of the recommendation? Opposed, if any? Carried. So the final item then is the enactment of the bylaws, and I have a motion to introduce and enact Bill 928, and I'll ask the clerk if she can. If not, I'll just read the motion. I'll just read it on the theory that it's not displayable at the moment. The motion is that the Debenture Committee pass and declare as a bylaw Bill 928, prepared for the November 6th, 2020 meeting of the Debenture Committee. Are there any questions to do with this motion? Are there any speeches that anybody wishes to make about this motion? Well, then I'm ready to call the question. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Carried. I also have, members, a motion to introduce and enact the confirming bill, and I will read that motion. It is moved by me that the Debenture Committee pass and declare as a bylaw a confirmatory bill to confirm the legislative proceedings of the Debenture Committee acting under delegated authority at meeting 8 on November 6th, 2020. Are there any questions on that motion? Is there any comment anybody wishes to make? Okay, seeing no one wishing to do so, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the confirming bill? Opposed? Carried. If there's no other business, that would conclude our business for today. Anybody else have any comments or other business to raise? All right, well, I'll thank our staff, and I'll thank the members of the public for their patience during the time when we couldn't display things as normal. And I will declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you very much. Job well done.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.